It's time to have your say. Welcome back to the Q&A, answering your questions in the wrestling community straight after this. So welcome back to the channel, answering your questions in the wrestling community once again on WWE, NXT, AEW, Impact and much more. If you want to be involved on the next episode of Ask SCW, you can drop a question here on YouTube, leave the hashtag AskSCW, or you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram or Facebook. All should be popping up on your screen right about now. Many great topics on the way, including Karrion Kross, Becky Lynch, Brock Lesnar and much more. Let's kick things off by talking about CM Punk. Noob and Co. with the name change here to Supersonic X with our first question this week. What are your thoughts on CM Punk's return? I am so happy that CM Punk has finally returned to wrestling. Honestly, it's something I've wanted for years. I didn't think it was ever going to happen, but of course, in recent times, we've known the reports, we've seen them everywhere, that Tony Khan picked up the phone, the talks were going on, it was expected that CM Punk would sign. First, originally we all thought it would be at All Out, then we learned of this Rampage show, the first dance in Chicago at the Allstate Arena, 23,000 people, and when the music hit at that start of the night, you just thought to yourself, it's going to be MJF, isn't it? It's going to be someone that's just going to get proper heel heat, going to get the place to boo, but instead CM Punk came out, and I think in hindsight this actually turned out to be the right thing to do, because fans would have hijacked the entire show with the CM Punk chants. We were hearing it before anything happened on this show, so it's really good to see him come back. The entrance itself was proper emotional. We see people, cheering as loud as they could, fans crying in the audience. Do you know what? Fair play to them. It's good to see people emotionally attached to something happening in wrestling. If it's positive, we should be happy that people can engage and get this emotion and engagement with the show. It's an awesome thing to see. I want to see more of that in a professional wrestling environment, that we are so emotionally attached to this sort of thing. I was out of my seat cheering along, seeing the CM Punk stuff being chanted, and then Punk, going there, just spitting on the mic, just seeing like we thought about what I should say. We're just going to go with it. I need to feel it, and I feel it. Him talking about his time in Ring of Honor, the fact how he's been away from professional wrestling since 2005, the fact he wants to work with all such great talent, he wants to give back to the locker room as well. He's called out and set up the match with Darby Allin at All Out, which I think will be a fantastic match to watch, to be honest. I think it's almost like the perfect way for CM Punk to come back in one way, because he's been out of the ring for a long time. We don't know what we're going to get. Will there be ring rust? According to Stephen and Mel, no, we won't. He's been doing some training and stuff. He looked fantastic in the ring. Well, let's hope he really does bring that to All Out, because Darby Allin doesn't need a victory, but he can put on a great match with CM Punk. Darby Allin will get a lot of a rub just being in the ring with CM Punk in Chicago. So there's many great positive things, and there's so many great wrestlers out there, the potential that CM Punk could work with, which I'll go into on my next question. But I mean, seriously, I'm so happy he's back. It's great for professional wrestling, it's great for AEW, it's great for us fans who have missed CM Punk. And to be honest, as much as I would like to see him back in WWE one day, main eventing a WrestleMania, perhaps being in some dream matches that we could have seen with superstars over there, I feel he's in the right place. I feel he's in the right home. And you could see, he says that he wasn't happy. He was not in a good place when leaving WWE. He loves wrestling again. He's happy. He's back in, and he wants to give everything he can give to AEW. And I think personally, you can see it in Punk's eyes, and you can see it with the initial reaction from the wrestling community, from the ratings as well for Rampage. I mean, seriously, how much did they go up from the first week here? He's on Dynamite tonight as well, giving his first words. Expect another big rating as well, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he's got to say. But yeah, to just sum it up there for you, I'm extremely happy that CM Punk is back. He was like my favourite wrestler up until the point he left. He's now back, and now he can take that spot once again. I can't wait for the amazing talent that he can work with now within AEW. Speaking of amazing talent CM Punk can work with in AEW, that brings to the next two questions, which I'm going to combine. Dylan Ketchum saying that CM Punk is back in pro wrestling for AEW. Who would you like him to face? And Austin Whitley asking my top 5 dream matches for CM Punk in AEW. Well, looking through the talent pool, like I said, I could pick you like 20, 30. There's so many of the AEW roster that I want to see him face. But to pick 5 for you, first off, I'm going to go with Kenny Omega, because, I mean, Kenny, he's been leading the line in AEW now with this Super League group for a while. It kind of feels that almost top of the pack. CM Punk very anti kind of that sort of establishment, people top of the pecking order. I'd like to see that feud. It's a dream match in itself as well, CM Punk versus Kenny Omega. And I've got to give a shout out to Aaron Wrestling by Waldridge, who did his own top 10 CM Punk matches in AEW. I recommend people go and check that video out. He suggested the idea as well. Doc Gallows is a part of that group also. And let's not forget that he was actually aligned in a group with CM Punk in WWE, the Straight Edge Society. And don't forget, Serena Deeb is also in AEW, so it'd be quite fun to see if that could play out in some form and fashion as well. But definitely Kenny Omega would be my top choice, because it's just a dream match in general. Cody Rhodes would be another one, because Cody, it's a authority thing as well. Cody's that top, he's an EVP in the company, makes sort of these big decisions and stuff, almost the Triple H of the company, and CM Punk could exploit that. If CM Punk was the babyface and Cody had turned heel, I think this could be a fascinating storyline, how that could play out, especially if this was at this point CM Punk perhaps work his way to becoming an AEW champion. I think it could be quite fun for Cody to, almost abuse his authority, get himself back into the championship hunt. I think it'd be a great fun storyline for that to play out. I think these two together could make some absolute magic on the mic, and could have some great encounters in ring as well. Let's not forget about the AEW younger talent who, Punk wants to work with. They mentioned great on the mic. What about MJF? MJF would not cut corners. He doesn't with any competitor that he faces. Could you imagine him bringing up how the fact he took his ball and went home from WWE, CM Punk leaving in 2014, MJF exploiting that, going to the inner depths of that. You couldn't be in and around wrestling for years. The fact that you went to UFC and you failed that, and when you chose to go back to wrestling, you went on a talk show. I could just see MJF absolutely tearing CM Punk a new one in that format on the mic, and Punk is the sort of superstar who can give it just as well back. So for me, that would be an amazing feud, and I'd love to see. Top of my list would be Malachi Black for match quality. I think these two would be absolutely superb. Malachi Black, it's hard to pick up a real storyline with this, but of course, both from tattooed wrestlers. Malachi Black kind of taking that darker edge and mystique of a character. CM Punk at this point of his career, his life, he's done the things where he's done the dirty tricks before. He wants to give back to the company. I think they could play off a fun storyline with that sort of routine. Last but not least, Hangman Page. Hangman is like the most over thing in AEW. When he's not become a world champion, I think he would be great getting a victory over someone of the like of CM Punk, a name value that would get him high up the pecking order, would make him very believable at becoming a world champion in the future. So Hangman Page would be my last option. Slightly cheating now, but if he was to come to AEW, Adam Cole would be my other selection, because damn it, I'd love to see Cole versus Punk. I think that'd be an awesome feud in itself, and both of them, again, epic on the mic, great in ring, almost looking like Adam Cole was kind of like a CM Punk-esque style superstar. They've gone through similar paths as well, so to actually meet in an AEW ring, again, would be pretty awesome to see. Which nicely takes us into our next question from Carmine Rocco. Do you think Adam Cole is leaving WWE? Yes, I do think he's leaving WWE, and here's my reasoning for it. Number one, he lost on TakeOver, which I think many expected. Of course, Adam Cole could be going to Raw or SmackDown, but he's still not meant to have signed a contract. You've seen with PW Insider and Fightful conflicting on when that contract's meant to have expired. One has said it's already, another saying on Friday. There has been reports as well that people thought in WWE that Adam Cole, if he was going to sign a contract, would have done so by now. Nothing has come out in reports, so it seems that Adam Cole could just turn up on AEW, because he wouldn't have to do a 90-day non-compete clause or any of the sort like that. I don't think he would turn up tonight, because I don't think he'd be eligible at this point, but why not next week? Perhaps maybe he could go as early as Rampage on Friday, or Dynamite next week, or turn up at All Out. It certainly could happen. I think it's more than likely, because as well, they did a video package this week on NXT also of Carmelo Hayes with some of the people he's faced in NXT. They mentioned he was there competing his first match in June. They didn't mention that he faced Adam Cole, and I thought that was an interesting dynamic. So the fact that they've just kind of erased Cole from history in that one small video clip already makes me think he's not sticking around. So I think he's all elite. He's got a lot of his friends there. He's got his partner Britt Baker, DMD, there as well. So yeah, it looks to me that Adam Cole will be going to AEW. It's a matter of when, not if. And of course as well, he has said he's not giving up his Twitch streams either. So, well, if that's part of the deal, that on the main roster, if you want, of WWE, Raw, SmackDown, they're not allowed to do it unless he could work something into contract. I don't think that that's going to be happening. So yeah, if I'd say at this point, I think he's going AEW. Next question going from DJ Cassia. Thoughts on Karrion Kross's new look on WWE Raw last night. Now, for those who have not seen Karrion Kross's new look on Raw last night, here you go. Now, I'm going to have to be honest with you. I watched Raw on delay this week, obviously not being on the American time zone anyway. It's usually quite difficult for me to watch it live, but I went on Twitter the next day and I saw the mask beforehand, and I must admit, I laughed. It just doesn't look good, does it? It's like a poor man's Demolition. I spoke to non-wrestling chat. He said it's a bit like the Sultan. It's a bad looking mask design. It really does. I mean, let's be honest, it does look a bit like a Gimp, the way he's dressed as well, with the cross going across there. It's really, really bad designing. I'm not a fan of the new look at all. Now, of course, looking at the report section of it, Nick Khan and all these sort of people suggesting that if you want to be big in WWE, you need something to stand out. You can't just be, standing there as Karrion Kross. They wanted something that's marketable, something that's going to sell merchandise, something that's going to be out there for people. Well, I don't see what was wrong with the NXT version of what we saw with Karrion Kross, because they had this mystique with this big entrance. He had Scarlett by his side, he had the TikTok thing going on, obviously not the phone app, but with the timer and stuff like that, and it felt like there was something special about this superstar. They were hiding the weaknesses and really presenting this what looked like a main event talent, and they brought him to Monday Night Raw, and God, have they just damaged his character in a few weeks. And now they've given this, he lost the NXT Championship, he's left NXT now after TakeOver, and he's come to Raw and they've given him this. Honestly, this just, if it carries on with the way, because fans are rejecting it, full stop, this guy could become like the Ascension. It's really not looking good. I'm at the point, I'm looking forward to like 2 years time from now where I'm going to see Karrion Kross on Talk is Jericho explaining about how awful the time is in WWE, because seriously, this is a bad mask, this is a bad look, and to be fair, WWE's recent mask game hasn't been very good anyway. I did a tweet at the time, so putting out Dean Ambrose's face mask, the gas mask that he did, where he didn't want to be around people, and as well with Retribution and T-Bar, and said who wore it better. Seriously, this is just, it goes under the wrestle crap, and it doesn't do the guy such service. And the real honest truth is that some people are not a fan of Karrion Kross. I'm open about it. I think the guy's got so much potential. I like the fact of his style, the way he does. I'm not a big fan of the cross jacket, but I like the fact he's got a slower, different style in the ring. It's very old school. It's very like watching the 90s, if you want, with the way he presents himself and the way he carries himself in the ring. And with that Mystique and Scarlett as well, I really thought there was something special. This here, for me, is proper damaging. Which brings us nicely to the next two questions, which I'm going to bring together as one here. Jamie Holmes here with our next one. Do you think Karrion Kross is unsalvageable? He lost to Keith Lee and Jeff Hardy on Raw before his official call-up. He's had his last NXT appearances hijacked by Hardy chants, and after losing his title, he got Hardy chants and the dreaded goodbye song, and that attire, which really says a lot really immediately before even go into an answer. And Review Geek 3000 saying, is it the beginning of the end for Karrion Kross? Well, as I said in the last question, it's not looking good, but can we salvage it at this point? There's some saving grace from what they had from Karrion Kross's performance. I said that I'd seen it on Twitter, did have a bit of a giggle, but when I said to myself, I have to watch Raw for this, I suppose WWE maybe's got something right with it, but they really haven't. But to come and then watch his match with Ricochet, he destroyed Ricochet in very quick time, and it's never normally a good thing to say that Ricochet was jobbed out in seconds. So we go back to the Brock Lesnar match at Super Showdown a couple of years ago, but in this case for Karrion Kross, he needed that win and he needed to look dominant. And from this point onwards, if Karrion Kross can look dominant, I mean, he doesn't wrestle in the mask, thank goodness. Maybe WWE will look at these straps, maybe they'll look at social media and say, that didn't work as well. Maybe he'll come to the ring in it, or maybe he'll take it off, or maybe they will actually transition and bring Scarlett in. Maybe they're trying something different, and if they realise it doesn't connect, they will switch it up. It is still very early days for Karrion Kross. There are times with superstars that have been called up and we think to ourselves, it's not going to work out for these superstars early doors, and they find a way to bring it right. Not in the same sort of scenario, it's nowhere near as bad, but if I take Riddle from last year, I mean, that's probably a good example I could give. He came to the main roster, had a great start though. He didn't lose his first match. He beat AJ Styles, probably one of the best starting ones ever on SmackDown during the pandemic era. But then he went off on this weird tangent for about 2 or 3 months where he was lost, having to explain about his shoes, why he didn't wear shoes and would wear flip-flops, and his feet being in the snow, and just all sorts of nonsense. And then going to Raw and jobbing out to AJ Styles, like in the matches where he was frightened of Omos. Do you remember those days? He was frightened of the big guy. Was the first guy to be fed to AJ when Omos debuted, with AJ Styles as the bodyguard anyway. And over time they found a way to get Riddle back in, because Riddle was doing this really awful stuff backstage as well, with like these horrible skits and stuff, but they found a way to make RK Bro work. They found a way to get the characters to connect with people at home, and where people are now thinking that Riddle was one of the highlights of each and every Raw. So there is ways where you can turn this around. It's still very early days, and with many superstars, they go through patches where you think, this isn't going well. Arguably, this has been worse than many others with Karrion Kross, but there's still time. But if they do carry on down this avenue, like I say, it's really not looking good. So I hope it can be salvaged, but yeah, I mean, we're going to have to judge this over the next few weeks or so. But Karrion, if you're watching, I'm sorry, man, because seriously, big fan of the work, and yeah, you're being done dirty, it feels, since that call-up. It almost feels like Karrion Kross is being punished for being NXT champion because NXT lost to AEW in the those Wednesday night wars, and the fact that they want to rebrand NXT and change it all up. And the other thing which we've not mentioned in the video, which I will do very, very quickly, is when that mystique was taken from Karrion Kross with the promo with Adam Cole and Johnny Gargano all saying that we're great in ring and that you're not so good and stuff like that, and just saying everything that he is an entrance and stuff. When that was put to the audience's attention, that was also very damaging. If you've got a trick, you don't, as a magician, you don't tell everybody how it's done because it's not impressive anymore. So now that we know what was kind of impressive about Karrion Kross, they need to find a new way of making it impressive again. This mask ain't it. This demolition, poor man's demolition isn't the way to do it. So yeah, I'm hoping they'll find the trick of getting it back there for Karrion Kross. But it looks like it's going to be a questionable road going forward. But dominant wins is a good way to start. If they keep him winning, that's going to be something that will at least put him in good stead in booking and in writing terms. And if they can get those other tweaks out with the character sorted out in the next sort of couple of months, then maybe we can get Kross back on track. Next set of questions now coming from Review Geek 3000 and also Lorenzo Carrillo. And now that they split Miz and John Morrison, is it time for Morrison to be pushed? It's from Review Geek, and Lorenzo Carrillo saying, what is on your eyes that you want to see from Miz and Morrison feud going forward? Honestly, I want to see a John Morrison push. I find that somehow he's managed to make this drip America's Moist Wanted to be very entertaining. I'm loving Moist TV with the the paddling pool with the sort of rubber ducks in there and stuff like that. This should be god awful TV. It's stuff I should be hating, but Morrison finds a way of making it entertaining. And when Morrison finds a way to keep delivering, and I've seen his work outside of WWE as well, the guy is money, and I think he deserves a push here. And I think with Miz and Morrison, they could make this feud work over the course of the next few weeks and stuff. I am surprised the match is being given away on 1 week of TV here once the breakups happened. I think they could have pushed this to put it on Extreme Rules on pay-per-view. Probably in a Moist TV set match or something for Extreme Rules, who knows. But who knows what they could do. Maybe they've got some sort of wacky stipulation set for the pay-per-view. But I think ultimately John Morrison needs to come out victorious of this. I think John Morrison has a lot to push forward because the gimmick is fresher. I think The Miz, he can win, he can lose. Doesn't really change where The Miz's position is on the card here. So for me personally, that's sort of what I'm hoping for. And then when it comes to the draft, we keep Morrison on Raw. I think we'd move The Miz over to SmackDown. I think that would make the most logical sense, break them up at that point so they really aren't together and they can't do rematches then for the next 3 or 4 months non-stop. But yeah, if you push this now for the next few weeks, I think it could be a fun feud. And yeah, maybe we can have the clash of Moist TV, Miz TV, and going through their years of friendships and stuff, and the dirt sheet and all sorts. They can bring up all sorts of history. It can have a lot of fun with this feud. It could actually be really captivating TV, but knowing the creative team, probably isn't going to happen, is it? Lots of combining on the questions today. Review Geek 3000 once again. Can Bianca come back from being buried at SummerSlam? I'm guessing to do there with Becky Lynch. And Supersonic X back with us now. Do you think Becky Lynch's return was a bit too early? Well, you can see why I've combined the questions, but personally, I don't think it's too early for Becky Lynch to come back, even though I will say both Becky and Brock were more a reactive action from WWE rather than a proactive action from WWE. Neither were originally planned to be in the spots that they were in, according to dirt sheets. And to be honest, people will say, oh yeah, well, of course it wasn't to react to CM Punk. Yes, it was to react to CM Punk, and WWE should be reacting to CM Punk. That's the thing. Looking at it, you always should respond. WWE did that in the 90s, so in my personal opinion, it wasn't too soon for Becky to come back. The question is, has she buried Bianca Belair in and amongst on that return? So let's go on to that part of the question here, and we have to really go to the beginning here and say that first off, WWE were wrong to advertise Sasha Banks for that match, knowing full well for about a week she wasn't going to be in SummerSlam. False advertising is not a good thing in my personal opinion, because they sold us this match even though they probably knew it wasn't going on, even up to the point that the match was going to take place. They obviously didn't want people to speculate that Becky Lynch would be the one actually taking the spot. So also they threw Carmella out, which, let's be fair, it drained the life out of Las Vegas. Vegas just went, wow, we don't want to see this match. And of course WWE then saying, well, we'll bring Becky Lynch out to take Carmella out. It's almost like, haha, you thought we'd give you that on pay-per-view, knowing full well they've given us that match multiple times before. Well, first off, WWE, yes, we did think you were going to give us that, because that's what you usually do to us. But no, Becky coming back was a nice surprise. It got a big pop, and that's why for me as well, it didn't feel like the wrong thing. It didn't feel like the wrong thing that Becky won the match either, because once Becky's in the match with Bianca Belair, well, Becky's just returned. No one would really question that Bianca Belair lost the match. It's more in the fashion that she'd done so, and that's why we asked the question, has she been buried? Because let's be fair, she's lost to 2 moves of doom. How this should have been booked is that Becky should have taken out Carmella. She should have grabbed the microphone saying, you know, can we have a match instead for the SmackDown Women's Championship? And then we could have got the idea of Bianca saying yes, and as she says yes, Becky goes, great, takes the microphone, whacks Bianca over the head with it. You know, or takes a kendo stick and then completely beats her down like she's being whipped, like Bianca would whip someone with her hair, for example. Get it to the point that Bianca then's trying to get up on her feet, does the dumb babyface thing of like, ring the bell, I can handle this, I can be involved, I can get through this match, and then that way then you get a 25-second match, because it would make proper sense that another sucker punch from Becky Lynch and the manhandle slam would be enough to get the victory, or as we'd like to say, a rock bottom. But I mean, of course, just doing it this way, how they kind of eliminated that element out, it did bury Bianca Belair. It definitely did a lot of harm, because you spent a year building this girl up, an incredible Royal Rumble performance, main event of WrestleMania Night 1, beating Sasha Banks and arguably one of the best matches of the year. She's had a steady run as SmackDown Women's Champion, I would say. You know, she's had fun moments in a feud with Bayley, definitely some good matches with Bayley. We've had with Carmella as well, and now we're at this situation where we're going to get Banks as well once again. I thought that this build of this feud was better than the build to the one at WrestleMania. To have the match here with Becky Lynch, if there wasn't going to be any shenanigans or the sucker punch, we know there's a sucker punch, but it shouldn't have been enough. For me, this should have been a 10-15 minute match. So, has it buried Bianca Belair? I think it depends on the fallout, if I'm going to be brutally honest with you. And here's what I'm going to say very, very quickly. It all depends what's going to go on forward from here. It was confusing at the time, because we didn't know if Becky was, meant to be babyface. It felt like a heelish thing at the time, and I did even say on Twitter, got a bit of stick for it as well, but I said it feels like it's more of a heel move here from Becky. Now it's come out in dirt sheet reports that she is going to be a heel going forward. That's pretty cool. That makes kind of a bit of sense, but like I said, we could have solidified that in that moment. But if we can use this and eventually Bianca Belair can get a victory over Becky Lynch, the man, someone was carrying the company a couple of years ago, they can make it to a point where Bianca Belair will be a bigger star at the other end of this than what they were before. Sometimes it's all about moments. It's how you can use those moments. This moment felt like it was a reactive thing to CM Punk what happened on Rampage the night before, and was to get people talking, which didn't really do Bianca any favours. But I think long term, Bianca will be fine. She's a great talent. She's had a great year, and I do think ultimately Bianca remains the babyface here, which I think is strong. If you can get her where she gets her win back over Becky Lynch, then she'll be fine. If she doesn't get the win over Becky Lynch, then maybe there would be a question mark then. Well, we've tackled one return, let's tackle the other. Brock Lesnar season or Bone Crusher 5 are our next question now. Thoughts on the GOAT Brock Lesnar returning? Well, let's not focus on whether it was reactive or proactive. Let's celebrate that these superstars are back, because it's pretty cool that we have CM Punk, Becky Lynch and Brock Lesnar all back. And Brock Lesnar really felt like the bigger surprise of the two, in my personal opinion. The way that they closed the show of SummerSlam as well, the fact that we got smiling Brock Lesnar as well, looking down at Roman Reigns. As much as I want Brock versus Lashley, I think that's the dream match. It's the match I want to see. Arguably, this does make the most sense of where Brock Lesnar should return first here, because Paul Heyman, his advocate, is now advocating for somebody else. He's advocating for the tribal chief. And, you know, Brock Lesnar coming back here, having that stare down to end SummerSlam, it was a pretty cool moment. I think the fact as well it was kept under wraps. There wasn't really, I didn't see any sort of dirt sheet gossip on the idea that Brock would be returning this position. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool. And the fact that this match as well was rumoured and meant to be for WrestleMania 39, goodness, that's a long time ahead. We're getting it, you know, in the sort of near future at least. Feels much better from my personal point of view. I think Brock Lesnar is a very underrated talent. He knows how to tell a story in the ring. He does some great matches. He can put on a hell of a great match when needs to as well. You know, we've had sometimes where there's multiple suplexes and stuff, but at the same time, it tells a story, and I like that with Brock Lesnar. When he works with all these different talents, it's worked really, really well. And Roman Reigns in the past, those matches haven't really connected as well with fans. I think this way around, it's going to work much better. And I think personally for me, that this could be one of the fun things of the year to check out here. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Brock Lesnar brings to SmackDown this Friday. And speaking of Lesnar versus Reigns, we've got Mike Tannerham's Mike with our next two questions for us now. Yes, we've seen Lesnar and Reigns before, but the dynamics are completely different this time with Heyman in Reigns' corner. How would you book it going forward? And question two, who should be Samoa Joe's first challenger for the NXT title? Well, how I would book it, I'd have the match at Extreme Rules. I think at the moment WWE need to do their biggest matches possible when they have them as soon as possible to get fans engaged and to get them excited, and rather than just dragging things out. But I think more than likely this is going to happen at the Crown Jewel pay-per-view in Saudi Arabia in October. So I'm going to book it planned for that pay-per-view, which I'm expecting that to be then. So for me, I would have Roman Reigns come out on SmackDown this week, being all cocky that he put John Cena away and sent him back to Hollywood. Paul Heyman is by his side, holding up that Universal Championship. The Usos are there as well at ringside to keep, you know, Roman Reigns protected, knowing the idea that Brock Lesnar could come out. Brock does come out because, of course, Brock doesn't care, does he? He would send the Usos packing any day of the week. Brock is Brock. He's a beast. So, you know, the beast incarnate makes his return, all smiling, happy, like he was at SummerSlam, coming into the ring, and they're like, what are you so happy about? It's like, are you just happy to be back? Are you happy to share the ring with the Tribal Chief? Is that what it is? Do you think you want to, do you want a team with the Tribal Chief? Is that what you're after? Do you think you just waltz back in and be by my side because I've got your advocate? And Lesnar would be like, well, no, actually, I'm laughing at the idea that Paul, you know, was my advocate, and now he wants to spend his time, you know, managing you around, trying to make you relevant. I'd like that idea of the storyline instantly. So, you know, Roman's got his back against the wall, and it's like, look, I'm here to prove, Roman, that you're not the head of the table. That it's actually Paul Heyman was my advocate for, you know, for a reason before, and I can come in and I can just take that Universal Championship whenever I see fit to. At this point, we could see Finn Balor's music hit because, you know, Roman Reigns is stumbling on his words at this point, not really knowing how to react deep down. Finn Balor comes out and says, look, I've been put on the shelf for the last couple of weeks. I was supposed to have a match against Roman Reigns. I'm not missing out on another opportunity. And this is where Roman, you know, that sort of cowardly sort of heel, but also thinking on his feet, the Tribal Chief as he does. We're like, yeah, I was going to say, look, Brock, it's good to have you back, but you don't just walk into a Universal Championship match with the head of the table. You've got to earn that. I mean, look, we were going to give the opportunity to Finn Balor, and that got taken from him at SummerSlam. John Cena came in and thought we could just cut the queue, and look what happened to him. I took him out. It's Finn Balor going to get the first opportunity. And Brock can be like, look, you know me, I don't care when I do it. I will do it when the time is right. I'll take that championship from you. But if you think that you're the one that sent Cena to Hollywood, check this out on screen. And of course, there's actually been going around on the dirt sheets. Apparently, Brock Lesnar actually gave a lot of suplexes to John Cena after SummerSlam went off air, and he can say, I sent him packing back to Hollywood. It wasn't you. It was me after all. I'm sending back with the bruises and stuff to the point that he probably can't even film his next project, and put it to that point. So that Lesnar is a dominant beast. Reigns is sort of cowardly trying to get away from it. We can get Roman and Balor at Extreme Rules, that sort of way. We kind of keep Lesnar a bit off the TV because we know Lesnar's not going to be back full time, and then we can sort of build that then further towards Crown Jewel, the fact that it's based with Paul Heyman, and then we can sort of start arguing Paul Heyman, like, you know, backstage, if, you know, he's not with Roman. Are you really with Roman? Whose side are you really on? You spent more than years with me. Don't you think you want to stick with me? And at that point, we can build that to the match, and then Paul Heyman can almost do what he did almost like the Survivor Series 2002 and show that he's really not with Brock Lesnar. Perhaps maybe sort of play the idea that he's in the middle throughout that sort of last parts of the feud, then get to the pay-per-view and no, I'm on Roman Reigns' side, and the Tribal Chief retains. That's the way I book it. And as for challenger for Samoa Joe, well, we saw on NXT this week a host of names have thrown their name in the hat. Pete Dunne there, LA Knight, yeah, and as well as Kyle O'Reilly, also cool Carl. For me personally, I think Pete Dunne makes the most logical sense. If Adam Cole was sticking around in NXT, I think it would have been Adam Cole, but clearly he's not. So I'm going to go with Pete Dunne. I think the Bruiserweight makes the most sense. I think these two have had a number of stare downs backstage, and I think it'd be a hell of a match as well. I don't think Samoa Joe is going to be a long-term NXT champion either. I'm going to say, I think War Games at the latest. That's what I'm going to say. It'll be 3 months maximum. They're going to get this over to a younger star, perhaps someone of the right size who they're looking to mould to be this new NXT branded champion of whoever that's meant to be. Although I have heard in the rumour mill that Pete Dunne and Johnny Gargano and Roderick Strong are going to be the top heels of the brand. Well, I mean, those are smaller guys, so it's not the bigger guys. So I have no idea what they're going to do with the new rebranding of NXT. We'll see that over the next few weeks. But to answer your question, I'm going Pete Dunne. Going back to Lorenzo Correa now for his second question. Do you think WWE is mainly focused on SmackDown instead of Raw from the last couple of months, with Raw knowing to have the same matches? What to say about Monday Night Raw, where you get rematch city week after week. You seem to have the same matches, the same programs, and sometimes the skits, the promos even feel the same. You know, like when you watch like a series of something you might watch that's not wrestling, like a drama or a comedy, and they give you something a little bit different that next week to give that next part of the story, so you feel the need to keep on watching. We don't get that with Monday Night Raw. We seem to get the same thing said each and every week, and just to top it off, we get a recap as well from the week before of what we're about to see, which we then get the same thing said again. Yeah, I mean, the things, it's classic. Vince McMahon has always been known of having faith in one show. Right now, SmackDown, for the first time, is the #1 branded show. If you go back to the noughties, you see the way that SmackDown was treated during the draft, especially as we, got past 2004 onwards. SmackDown was always done dirty. It was always treated as the less important show. It was the show that wasn't live, so it was taped well in advance. It had the superstars that were built up that would be good enough for Raw. If superstars weren't getting over on Raw, they'd be put on SmackDown. It was quite clear which was the A show and which was the B show. And we're getting that now, right now, but the other way around. SmackDown is the A show. We mentioned already in this video, the returns of Becky Lynch and Brock Lesnar. Both are given to Fox. They're both given to SmackDown, where Raw is crying out for more star power. And it feels like right now, they just don't care. Raw gets what they get, and that's how it's going to be. It's a 3-hour show. It can sink. It doesn't matter if it swims or not, because SmackDown seems to be where the focus and the importance is. This is not new from WWE. The only thing that's new about it is the fact that SmackDown is getting the royal treatment and Raw is getting the rubbish treatment. And yeah, it is something that we seem to be having to get used to with WWE, unfortunately. Just why they can't have 2 good shows on a weekly basis just doesn't really make sense. But if you go back to when SmackDown was being done dirty back in the noughties, I'd give anything for those SmackDowns to be what we've got for Raw episodes now. It's My House Wrestling podcast now with our next question, and just before we do, going to throw a graphic on the screen for right now of the most recent SCW Rewind Retro Review, SummerSlam 2013. I was joined by Chris from It's My House Wrestling podcast. I'm actually going to check that episode out straight after this. Was a great fun discussion discussing SummerSlam 2013, including John Cena and Daniel Bryan, as well as CM Punk and Brock Lesnar. But he asks, what would be your top 3 picks for Raw and SmackDown in the upcoming draft? Can be male or female. Fantastic question. Well, I'll tell you what then, let's go with our movers and shakers first from Raw to SmackDown. My first pick will be Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre's a top babyface. I'm a really big fan of his work, but I do feel now with Raw and the WWE Championship, he's probably just about outstayed the welcome. I think it's time to freshen things up and put him on a different show. He shouldn't be able to challenge Bobby Lashley for that WWE Championship anyway, and I don't want to see Drew having to go down the path of having to turn heel. So I think it'd be a right move actually to move him over to SmackDown in October. I still feel like him versus Roman Reigns has like make a a major main event of a pay-per-view, so I'd like to see it go down. I think it'd be really fresh for Drew and his character, so he'd be my first choice. Charlotte Flair would be my second choice, mainly because I want her to get away from Asuka and I want to get her away from Rhea Ripley. She's had those feuds so many times, so for me it's just so much simpler to move Charlotte over to SmackDown. Plus that way, yes, she's faced Becky Lynch multiple times, but I really want to see Bianca Belair versus Charlotte for the SmackDown Women's Championship come WrestleMania next year. I think that feels like a big time WrestleMania caliber match here, and I think at that point, they always say Charlotte's the opportunity, and if they want to really put Bianca over big style, if she can beat Becky and get the championship back, and then she can beat Charlotte at WrestleMania, God, you've got the future finally of the division there and a star in Bianca Belair. So yeah, for me, that'd be the purpose of why I'd move Charlotte Flair over. Last pick for Monday Night Raw to SmackDown, then Alexa Bliss for me. Purely on a booking perspective, I was really into Alexa Bliss's character this time last year for this mind manipulation, the transition from the goddess to this, darker character that we've got with Alexa Bliss was booked really well on SmackDown. Then she moved over to Monday Night Raw, and oh my God, the booking over the last sort of 12 months. Fair play. Alexa Bliss says she's happy with it and she's enjoying it. Fair play to her. Happiness is very important. But for me, I'm just not connecting with this character. I'm really not connecting with the Lily Doll. I have much more faith that SmackDown can book this character better than what Monday Night Raw is. I don't know why on WWE it feels that way, but SmackDown, I have more faith in them being able to book a show than I do Raw. So for that purpose, I want to be more invested in Alexa Bliss. And even in this character, I think there's a potential where it can really get over still, just not with that Lily Doll. So I think SmackDown though would be the right place to do it. As for Monday Night Raw, if it's making 3 moves right now, the first one would be Edge. Now, of course, it's almost like for like with Drew McIntyre. Edge, of course, is a legend, name value. You put him onto Monday Night Raw, you can have a big program with Bobby Lashley. I think that would work as well with that sort of getting Lashley over with that Legends as well. Edge has name value as well. Maybe it will help the ratings a little bit. I'm not so sure, but certainly I think Edge has done all he could do really in SmackDown over the last few months. He's had that WrestleMania match as well. He's been involved against Roman Reigns. Now got the program with Seth Rollins. Let's get him on Raw. He can have programs as well. The likes of AJ Styles as well would be pretty awesome to see. So yeah, I mean, for me, I really would like to see Edge go to Monday nights. My second choice would be Big E, Mr. Money in the Bank, because I don't think he'll cash in on Roman Reigns. I actually think he will actually be the one that will cash in on Bobby Lashley, and let's reunite him with the New Day. I think Big E does great things as a singles guy, but I do think as well it does feel a bit lost about the New Day. So I think put them back together as a trio, but keep Big E as the singles wrestler and as the sort of main eventer of the trio. It doesn't have to be a breakup or a bad angle or where he's just stuck in tag team matches. Make Big E feel like the real deal, but with his brothers by his side. I think it would be pretty fun to see. So yeah, and I think Big E will become WWE champion if he has that briefcase and he moves over to Monday Night Raw. My last selection for Raw, actually I'm going to go into the tag team division. I'm going to move the Alpha Academy over because I really am enjoying what they're doing with the dynamic of Chad Gable and as well with Otis, and I do think if they'd go into Raw, something right now with SmackDown, we've got the Usos as the tag team champions, we've got also the Street Profits and the Mysterios. There just isn't really a place right now for the Alpha Academy to win championship gold, so I think if you put them onto Raw right now, obviously you've got RK Bro that probably will still be a thing if they were to be moved over in the draft. So yeah, I mean, if they were the ones to take the titles from them, and then obviously back leads then Randy and Riddle perhaps maybe go into a program towards WrestleMania, Alpha Academy can carry the World Tag Team Championships. And I think with some teams like the Viking Raiders and Lucha House Party, there's some great matches in there, and they can be the dominant tag team of that division. Because for me, I think Chad Gable is a superb athlete that deserves to be higher up the card in my opinion. WWE. Otis has been very well booked since this transition to this character. I'm enjoying what they're doing with this serious Otis. So yeah, let's put them on Raw. Let's give them the tag team championships. Back to Supersonic X then for the other 2 questions sent in for this week. Will we get an Alexa's Playground match between Charlotte and Alexa Extreme Rules? And 5 reasons for Asuka to return to WWE. Oh, I didn't think about that. Well, of Extreme Rules, they've got to do something, haven't they? We've had Eye for an Eye last year, so I mean, Alexa's Playground isn't really out of the realms of a possible match that we could get at Extreme Rules. So I hope it doesn't, because I'm not really a fan of Alexa's Playground. I'm not a fan of the setup, and I don't think the match setting would be for me. I hope that this is built to a regular singles match. We're finally getting Charlotte and Alexa Bliss in some sort of feud. These two have faced one-on-one at Survivor Series back in 2017. I'd like this to be more built on the idea of these two very decorated champions in Raw history, and Raw and SmackDown Women's Champions, but somehow I'm not sure it's going to go down that avenue, and perhaps maybe you're more likely right with the Alexis Playground. We'll have to wait and see. But definitely they will face off at Extreme Rules, that's for sure. Will the stipulation be added? Time will tell. As for Asuka, you're not going to like me anymore, I don't think, but I'm actually kind of happy that Asuka's had a break off WWE TV. I just feel that after, you know, the last sort of, 6-7 months of the booking of Asuka, I think it's been good that we've had an opportunity to just have a break from things, for her to have a break as well, a chance for us to miss her, and then when she comes back, that she can come back in solid and strong once again. I actually think keeping her off TV until the draft actually is a good move. If you look at the booking on Monday Night Raw right now of its women's division, Asuka's probably not too sad she's not there either, because you know, it's not been the strongest booking of the women's division in recent weeks or months. So for me, when Asuka comes back, I mean, hopefully we're going to see a, you know, refreshed Asuka in the ring. We would miss us that, and this will be a good return reason in itself. I think a heel turn still, I think, would freshen things up, going back to that sort of Kabuki Warrior style. I know I've said it before, but, you know, just seeing the green mist, some cheap tactics, and just seeing, you know, a killer instinct back in Asuka. I don't want to see any of the dancing anymore. So those sort of things are what I want to see from the Asuka character, and I do hope that when she comes back, she'll still be pushed fairly strongly, because she's been a multi-time women's champion, and I think that she could be, if not as the champion, she could be used very well to elevate new stars going forward. I think that that's a very important role. If you have Asuka losing in too many matches on Raw, like she did when she, before taking the break to Doudrop, that's not going to do herself favours and the people defeating her favours for the too long distance future. Did Doudrop a favour when she won that match in that quick fashion, but if you then have other people come up in time, it starts to wear off. So I want Asuka to keep the level that she's at. I want her to have great matches, and yeah, see where it goes from there. So those would be the reasons I would turn around and say, and yeah, it's probably not exactly 5, but certainly I think that right now what's going on with Asuka probably is doing her a favour second. Wrestle Troll, the next question now, and he's shown us the AEW All Out match card so far, and my job is to predict the rest of the card. Fantastic question, and there's probably a good chance that this could be very out of date already, this question, by the time you see this. Of course, Dynamite is this evening. I expect the other matches to be announced, but let's go through then what I think will happen. With the Tag Team Championships, I'm expecting the Young Bucks in the Steel Cage match to go against Jurassic Express. If that is the case, I wonder if we would get new Tag Team Champions. It does feel like it would be the right time for it. I think for the FTW Championship, we've got Ricky Starks against Brian Cage. I think that will go down. The TNT Championship, Miro did call out Eddie Kingston as well last week, so it'll be interesting if that is a program going forward, which leaves John Moxley with nothing to do. And he did mention about Tanahashi before, about the IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship. Is there a chance that Forbidden Door could open for that matchup, or could it be someone else on the AEW card, perhaps on the roster, that would be fitting of that spot? I do realise that Moxley had a little bit of a attack from the guys from 2.0 and Danny Garcia, but I just don't feel that's pay-per-view worthy at this point. So yeah, I'll go for Tanahashi as a wild card outside of the box bet, but yeah, I reckon the other 3 I feel more safe about. Mark Q, World Order. The next question now. According to Anthem Entertainment CEO Len Asper, Impact Wrestling is about to announce a huge new distribution deal. Rumours floating around that Paramount Plus is a possible destination in the US. Would you like to see Impact on a large media app like, Paramount Plus, or would you prefer YouTube? Wherever gives Impact Wrestling the best numbers and ratings and treats this company like it should be. Push it heavily, market it so you can get as many people that is on your TV station wanting to watch Impact Wrestling. That is the most important thing in my personal opinion. Obviously Paramount Plus, obviously it's not Paramount the main channel, so but YouTube for me, of course, is a great platform. It's a forward-thinking platform, of course, with all the streaming and stuff like that. People can pick and choose when they see it, which is great also. So for me, I think YouTube is definitely a strong way to go, but I think they should have a television station as well. They should probably do both. Have it where it's on the TV station first, and after a few days, maybe 2-3 days time, whack it on YouTube. Like, we can see the likes of AEW, what they've done with Dark and Dark Elevation. Impact can really get a strength with that as well. If they have set the TV show out on a Thursday, perhaps on a Sunday, throw it on YouTube, because yeah, for the people who have not had a chance to see it on the TV station, they can go and check it out on YouTube. And also, it's a bit of a few day gap as well, so the TV station probably won't be so upset with it either. So that's probably the way I'd like to see it. But I just want to see Impact Wrestling get to as many TV homes as possible. It's a great promotion, some great talent on there. Love the Knockouts division, love the the X division. There's some great talents in and around all throughout the card as well, and the rumours are suggesting 1 or 2 more exciting acquisitions could be on the way as well, according to Scott D'Amore. So let's wait and see what's going to come up ahead. But the strongest Impact Wrestling possible, please, because you know, if we look at the last couple of weeks particular as well, I mean, I've always been a bit critical of the Forbidden Door, what it's done for Impact in the relationship, but there's no doubt Kenny Omega's done great for the pay-per-view buy rates. And you look that AEW have had the tag titles defended on Dynamite. We have seen, of course, on Rampage as well, get the new champion crowd to like 700,000 viewers. It's great for Impact Wrestling. So, you know, as many eyes on the prize as possible. That's the way forward. Last question on Ask SCW this week coming from Socky the Sock Puppet. What are the chances of me becoming the first ever puppet champion in WWE history if I become the 24/7 champion? Well, you know what they say, Socky. Anything can happen in WWE, so you wouldn't rule it out. If there's a day that you're in WWE and you beat Mr. Socko to that spot, then why not? It certainly could happen indeed. You wouldn't rule it out, would you? So I personally would love to see it. Let's hope you can make it happen one day. But that's all from me. Thank you so much for watching Ask SCW. As always, please subscribe if you're first time here. Please hit the bell as well for notifications and set that to on so you know each and every time a video is released. Please like the video as well, share the video, and leave a comment on any of the topics in the comment section below. I look forward to interacting with you. And while you're at it as well, go to the community section of this channel and vote on the poll that's up for you now for the next SCW Rewind, the Retro Review. 5 underrated pay-per-views, and of course, which show will it be? Well, you decide. You make the say. You vote, and if your one comes to the winner of the poll, which will be announced next Wednesday on the channel, then that'll be the one. It'll be the next SCW Rewind. So make sure to get involved in that. But make sure to check out these other videos in the meantime for you, and have yourselves a great day. Thank you for watching Ask SCW. All the best, and I will see you next time. Take care. All the best.